Here are 20 things we really enjoyed doing during our time in Barbados. It's a great destination if you want to combine time on tropical beaches with exploring an island packed with wildlife, history, culture and nature. Dover Beach is a long stretch of soft sand that's ideal if you like a good beach walk. I've got a bit of a soft spot for this beach, partly because we stayed on a hotel right on the beach, but mostly because this is where we first saw turtles in Barbados. Dover Beach is actually a turtle nesting spot from April to October, and even though we were there at the wrong time of year, we spotted loads of them just off the shore. They were a bit tricky to catch on camera, so you'll just have to take my word for it that it was much more exciting than this looks. Everything I mention in this video will be added to a free map and written guide, which you can access by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description below. To increase your chances of seeing turtles, as well as other funky fish, I'd recommend going on a snorkelling tour. We went on a small group tour that took us out around several shipwrecks. We chose a tour that picked us up really early, around 7 AM, which meant we were able to snorkel around the wrecks before the other tour groups and cruise ships arrived. We saw loads of fish and a few turtles up close. We then sailed up the west coast, which was really relaxing, before heading back towards the bay for more snorkelling. By this point, the other tours had arrived and it was much busier, which made us really appreciate going early. It was totally worth the early get-up. The tour finished with a delicious rum punch on the boat. Our snorkelling guide also took videos while we were in the water and shared them with us afterwards for free, which was a nice touch. St Lawrence Gap is a lively stretch on the south coast, packed with restaurants, bars, food trucks and even a few craft stalls. It's known for its nightlife, but in the day it's very quiet. The western end is the busiest, so that's worth keeping in mind if you're looking for accommodation nearby and want something a bit quieter at night. I'll share more food recommendations in a separate tips video, but our favourites on the Gap were Primo, which is great for special occasions right by the water, and Daddy's for something more casual and budget friendly. For drinks we liked Salvina's Mini Mart, which is actually a mini mart, but it has a small laid-back bar out the front, and the happy hour at our hotel, Southern Palms Beach Club, which has a lovely view over the water and sometimes live music too. Just a 5-minute walk from the west end of the Gap is Graeme Hall Nature Sanctuary, the last remaining mangrove wetland in Barbados. It's a peaceful reserve with shady walking trails, rescued animals and lots of bird life. You can hold a snake if you're feeling brave, and you're also given a small bag of feed for the fish or birds with your ticket. For us, feeding the birds in the large walk-through aviaries was a highlight. You can also take a short boat ride on the lake for a small extra fee, which we thought was well worth it. There are short information signs as you walk around the reserve, and the staff are really friendly if you want to learn more. Visiting Oistins is pretty much a rite of passage when you're in Barbados. You can visit for lunch or dinner any day of the week, but Friday night is the big one. By around 7 PM, it's absolutely buzzing with locals and tourists all having a good time. When you're ready to eat, just have a wander and pick whatever looks good. There are loads of different vendors to choose from, and not only is the food here good value for money, but it was some of the best we had on the island. If you're there on a Friday, it's worth sticking around after you've eaten. Grab a rum punch, browse the stalls selling souvenirs, jewellery and crafts, and then enjoy some live music and performances. It's a really fun way to spend a Friday night on the island, as long as you're okay with crowds. About a 10-minute walk from St Lawrence Gap is Worthing Beach. The water here is usually much calmer, so it's a good option if Dover or the other South Coast beaches have red flags up. There are plenty of sunbeds to rent, as well as beach bars, toilets and changing facilities, so it's an easy place to spend the day. The eastern end in particular can be a nice spot for snorkelling, at least when the ocean behaves, thanks to the natural reef just offshore. Nearby you've got Worthing Square Food Garden, which is a laid-back food court with a mix of food trucks, fairy lights and loads of affordable options. It's a really nice place to come in the evening if you want something casual. Along the south coast you'll find the Richard Haynes Boardwalk, which is a nice spot for a walk or a jog by the sea. It's about a mile long, with restaurants, bars and little sandy stretches dotted along the way. I think it's a good thing to do if you're already in the area, but probably not something to go too far out of your way for. At the eastern end of the boardwalk, it opens out onto Rockley Beach, a popular beach with sunbeds to rent, beach bars and plenty of natural shade. We even spotted a turtle from this beach, which is definitely always a bonus. Visiting the peaceful flower forest feels a bit like you stumbled into a huge hidden garden in the middle of nowhere. Formerly a sugarcane plantation, it was transformed in the 80s to the lush oasis it is today, and there's always something in bloom no matter when you visit. It's up in the hills, so it's cooler than the coast, which is very handy if you're needing a break from the heat. When you go in, they give you a map and a sheet to help you figure out what you're looking at, and then you can just wander around. The shady pathways wind through loads of tropical plants and flowers, and there are a couple of smaller trails you can duck down if you feel like exploring a little bit more. There's a couple of viewpoints along the way too, including Liv's Lookout, which looks right out to the coast. Explore Harrison's Cave on a guided tram tour that takes you through this huge limestone cave system, past loads of stalactites, stalagmites, streams and even little waterfalls. It's really impressive. Our guide was great as well, a good mix of educational and funny. You get to hop off the tram a couple of times along the way, including at the so-called Fountain of Youth, where you can splash the water on yourself. Supposedly it takes a few years off, so it's worth a go. There's also a few extra things to do above the ground, like ziplining, and there's an aviary if you've got the time. Bathsheba is one of the most dramatic parts of the island, known for its huge rock formations dotted along the coast, along with the famous mushroom rocks. This isn't a swimming spot, as the waves are strong and there's some pretty serious currents. That said, there are small natural pools where you can have a paddle. Just watch your step as there's loads of tiny crabs hiding around the rocks. It's also a popular place for surfing if you know what you're doing. Or you can just do what we did and sit back and watch and wish you were that cool. If you're visiting Bathsheba and you enjoy a good botanical garden, it's worth stopping by Andromeda Gardens, just a 5-minute drive from the beach. Known as the oldest and largest botanical garden in Barbados, it covers around 8 acres and is home to over 600 plant species, with a focus on conservation and biodiversity. When we visited, we had the place pretty much all to ourselves, which made it feel even more peaceful. It's also nice and shady, so a good option to escape the heat. We also saw butterflies, lizards, and even a few hummingbirds while we were walking around. Carlisle Bay on the southwest coast is made up of Browns Beach, Bayshore Beach, and Pebbles Beach. The beaches here are wide with really soft white sand, and the bay is sheltered, so the water is usually calm. There are plenty of places to rent sunbeds, plus there's beach clubs with bars, food trucks, and water sports. It can get really busy here though, especially when the cruise ships are in. We found the south end of the beach, away from the lounges, was a bit quieter. There's also a few shipwrecks just offshore that were purposely sunk to create a snorkelling and diving site, and you can take boat trips out to them. Pebbles Beach is also known for racehorses being taken into the sea between about 5:30 and 7 in the morning. We did try to set our alarms twice to see them, but it was pouring with rain both times, so we went back to sleep. We paired Carlisle Bay with a morning exploring Bridgetown, the island's small capital. The UNESCO-listed historic centre is fairly compact, so it's easy to see a few key sites in a short amount of time. We visited places like National Heroes Square, Independence Square, the Parliament buildings, and Golden Square Freedom Park. We also wandered down Swan Street, which is one of the main shopping streets, and saw the bridge that gave Bridgetown its name. There's definitely more to see and do here in Bridgetown than we managed to fit in, so I'll add a few extra suggestions here. If you want to see the green monkeys, then Barbados Wildlife Reserve is a good place to do it. The wild monkeys roam freely around the reserve and surrounding area, so the best time to catch them is during the feeding sessions at 11 AM and 2 PM. If you do miss the monkeys, you can get your ticket to the reserve stamped and then come back again within 2 weeks for free. There's a few other animals here too, including red-footed tortoises, deer, iguanas, and peacocks. We saw loads of tortoises while we were there. I'd say set your expectations slightly, as it's not a huge place with loads of different animals, but if you time your visit with the monkey feeding, personally I think it's worth the entry fee. Holetown, which is much nicer than the name suggests, has a combination of history, beaches, and places to eat, drink, and shop. We based ourselves here for the first week of our recent trip to Barbados and really enjoyed it. Holetown was actually the first British settlement on the island. An English captain landed here by accident back in 1625, and a couple of years later the first settlement was established. Today you can see a monument in town marking that first arrival. The coastline here is absolutely stunning. Being on the west coast, the water is usually calm and clear, and it's a great place to catch the sunset. You can rent a sunbed from one of the vendors or a beach club like Karma, or just throw down a towel anywhere. Holetown is a good place for shopping and food as well. Chattel Village has colourful little shops selling local crafts and souvenirs, while Lime Grove Lifestyle Centre is more modern with designer stores and art galleries. Near the centre of town you'll also find St James Parish Church, which is the oldest church in Barbados. One thing we really enjoyed during our time here was walking along the coast. When the tide was right, we walked from the Boardwalk near Paul Owens all the way past Folkestone Marine Park, which took about half an hour. There's a few places you can stop along the way if you fancy a drink or something to eat with an ocean view. Our favourite was Kurt's Beach Bar, a small, very laid-back spot with a really friendly owner and a mean fish cutter. Folkestone Marine Park, at the north end of Holetown, is known for being one of the best spots on the west coast for snorkelling. It's got shaded areas and rocky reefs just offshore that attract plenty of colourful marine life. There were northern swells affecting the area when we visited, so the water was a lot rougher than usual. Normally though, this side of the island is known for being really calm. If you do visit when the ocean is a bit calmer, there's a snorkelling trail that starts about 10 metres from the shore. The water stays fairly shallow with a gentle slope, so it should be an easy one to just float along and see what you can spot. There's also a few picnic benches and a casual little beach bar if you want to grab a drink or something to eat and sit with your feet in the sand. At the wild northern tip of the island is Animal Flower Cave, named after the sea anemones in its rock pools, known as animal flowers. You head down into the coral cave on a short tour where you'll have dramatic views out to the Atlantic. If you're very lucky, you might even spot humpback whales passing by, and I mean very lucky. Afterwards, if you want to, you're allowed to swim in the natural pools of the sea cave. I was expecting the water to be cold, but it's actually pretty warm, so it is worth bringing your swim stuff. There are changing rooms there if you need them. The rocky cave can be a bit slippery, so make sure you bring water shoes or sandals with a good grip. Also, don't skip the viewpoint right by the cave. It's a great place to just stand and watch the powerful waves crashing up against the cliffs. Barbados is known as the birthplace of rum, so while you're on the island you could visit one of their distilleries. We visited St Nicholas Abbey at the north end of Barbados. It used to be a sugar plantation, but is now home to an award-winning rum distillery. The Warren family, who've owned it since 2006, have restored and rebuilt much of the distillery on the estate since then. We did a short guided tour of the house and distillery, followed by a rum tasting with the owner's son. One downside is that you only see a small part of the house, so we did find ourselves wishing we could have looked around a bit more. We also went for the ticket option with the Heritage Railway, which is a restored steam engine that loops around the pretty grounds. We chose the option that also stops off at Cherry Tree Hill, and there's interesting commentary as you go. Even if you don't go on the railway at St Nicholas Abbey, you can still visit Cherry Tree Hill. It's a scenic viewpoint with breathtaking views out over the east coast and the Scotland district. Speightstown on the west coast feels a bit quieter and less polished than some of the more upmarket areas like Holetown. Its laid-back feel, historic streets and rustic charm make it well worth a visit. You can admire the old buildings, spot a few murals, walk along the pier, visit Arlington House Museum, or pop into the Gallery of Caribbean Art. We really enjoyed the gallery, but couldn't take photos or videos inside, so you'll have to see it for yourself. There's also a few good places to eat and drink, which I'll add to the map and written guide I mentioned earlier on in this video. After exploring the town, we walked up to Haywoods Beach, which is a lot quieter than some of the other beaches we visited and has plenty of shady spots to throw down a towel. Just nearby is Caboose, which is meant to be great for a fish cutter and live music on the weekends, although it was shut when we went on a Tuesday. Well, I hope you like visiting gardens because I've got one more for you. Hunte's Gardens, which boldly claims to be the most enchanting place on earth, was created in the heart of a deep sinkhole and is filled with tropical plants, towering palms and colourful flowers. Wander through a series of mini gardens while classical or jazz music plays softly in the background. The gardens aren't that big at all, but they really are beautiful. Our next video will cover practical tips and things we found useful to know while visiting Barbados. Information on getting around, where to stay, food recommendations, things that caught us by surprise, and more. Once that video is ready, I'll link it here. If we missed any of your favourite things to do in Barbados, then please do share them in the comments. Thanks for watching, I hope this video was helpful.